The new inspector palette in FileMaker 11 doesn't really have any new features. It just organizes the existing features you've already had in a more efficient single location. Still, it's one of my favorite features in FileMaker 11, and hopefully you'll find it be the same. If you're familiar with FileMaker 10 or earlier, it'll take a little while to get used to it because you're used to going up the layout menu and the format and range. Well, now you can go all in one place, and it takes a little time to train yourself. But once you get used to it, I think you'll like it. And to show the inspector, you click on this little eye right here, and it shows it. And there's three tabs: your position, your appearance, and your data. Now in the position section, I have hidden a lot of these areas because we're not going to cover them till later. They're more advanced options. Like the position, you can change the location of an object. This is handy, but more advanced things when you're doing lots of layouts. For right now, moving your objects by hand is just fine. You have auto resizing, arrange and align, actual cover, arrange and align in the next section. Sliding invisibility, that's really for printing. So these things are more advanced or actual come later. But what we're going to do is cover the appearance tab and the data tab. So under the appearance tab, you're going to see a lot of the things you've already seen already. You have your object fill. So you need to click on an object and you can change the fill. I can change it to, let's say, red, that quickly, and change the line this quickly to yellow. Of course, you can change those from up here too as well. There's many places. If you don't have the inspector showing, then that's great. You can do it that way. Then you also have your point size if you want. We also have our effects. We can make it engraved if we want. We're going to go over that more. It's not making our field look too good by adding all these things. We have all our options, such as we've covered before, such as putting on our borders. We have our text baselines. Now these are handy. We'll go over here to the notes field, and these might be handy as far as putting some baselines so you can see multi-line fields very easily. So we're going to go ahead and check that, and then go into browse mode and see what the notes looks like now. You can see now you have these little lines there, and it might be easier to see on a record that has no notes. These little lines might help you to see there are multiple lines there. Maybe you don't like it, maybe you do. I'm going to leave it on there. It's up to you. It's a personal preference, as many things are. So go back into layout mode, and we're going to also come over here to tooltips. Now tooltips are applied to objects also. That's why this section is called object. Tooltips are going to be covered later. They're allowed to give tiny little help sections. But again, we're going to cover them later, and they require a little bit of knowledge about calculations. So we're not going to cover them right now, but they're very handy, and I use them quite a bit. Then you have your text options, your fonts, your text highlighting, your bold, italics, and underline. All your styles are here. Your point size, your color. All that stuff's here, and we've covered that extensively. It's just another place to get to it. And it all depends. Do you have the inspector showing? Well, if you do, you can do it from here and do multiple things. If you don't, well, you can do some of the things outside the inspector. It's just the inspector allows you to float this around anywhere you want, make it any size you want, go ahead and reduce these things so you can see just what you want. It's very handy, definitely. And if you scroll down in the appearance section, you also see some paragraph options. This will be best shown over here in notes. They're the same options right here as we see right here. You can go ahead and center the text. You can see the notes. You can right justify it, full justify it, set it back to left justification, up in the middle, down at the bottom. These are also available under the menus as well. So remember, they're up here under align text in this section, and up here too. So there's a lot of options, but here's some that you don't have anywhere else. Line spacing. Do you want the line spacing to be more than the normal? You can set it to lines or pixels or inches or centimeters, whatever you prefer. You can play around with this stuff. We're not going to change it right now. And then you have your indents. This is like when you're typing. So if we go ahead and decide to indent, let's say 10 pixels on the first line, let's go to browse mode. And you'll see that now everything's indented 10 spaces, or 10 pixels actually in this case. So you can see I can apply a whole bunch of things at once real quickly. Now the tab section, we're not going to cover that until we actually cover how to work with text blocks and things. And we'll definitely cover it, but it's really just not relevant right now. So we'll go over to the data section, and here's some stuff you may not have seen yet. Some of it's the same, but some of you haven't seen. So we're going to click on a field, and you can see it shows the field name. You can go ahead and change it if you want by clicking this little button here. You have the control style, which we covered, drop down lists and things like that. include a vertical scroll bar, which we did on our notes field if you remember. If we click on it, you can see it checked there. One thing we haven't done is autocomplete. Let's try that one out. I'm going to go to this company field, but before we do that, I'm going to have to change it back to the way it was. And the easiest way to do that is to click on this field, go to Format Painter, and click back on this one, and it's back to normal. So let's go ahead and select this field and choose autocomplete. Let's go into browse mode, and we'll start typing in here, and you'll see the difference. I just typed a D and it filled in Database Pros. So depending on what companies you have in there, I think we also have Paulson and Phillips. So we can make it very easy to type in the same thing. It may not make sense on a company field, but it could make sense in a city field, let's say, or a state field, to help you to type this in more quickly. But I'll leave it on the company field. There may be several people from the same company, and this could be useful so you don't have to type it out, and you also get consistent data entry. Okay, so let's move on down this list. We also have repetitions. Those typically aren't used. They're for flat file systems. They are used sometimes for storing values or variables, and you can use that with variables. They have repetitions, or global fields with repetitions, but generally storing data in a repeating field makes it extremely difficult to do reporting, so I wouldn't recommend using this very often, especially not in layout mode where you'd be doing data entry. So we're going to go ahead and cover the behavior section, which is quite complicated, along with the data formatting, which has a lot of capability, in the next section when we continue talking about the new inspector tool in FileMaker 11.